What up, what up? Welcoming everybody to another episode of Profit Picks. If you are new, we do always start this show by being transparent. And yesterday I went 2-3, but the two that won were the better bets, the higher percentage, which were the Spurs and the Dolphins. So the three losers, I think I took Claxton over his rebounds. That got hooked. I took Vucevic over his 1.5 threes plus money. That got hooked. And that Bulls and Cleveland game trending over the whole way. Somehow just died and stayed under, but slight profit. I'll take it. Today we got Chris back on the channel. It's good to have you back. You guys probably already tuned in and watched the show this morning. Got an idea where he's looking. But how you doing today, Chris? Appreciate you taking the time to come through.
Absolutely, bro. Appreciate you having me on. Pretty good. Skee. I feel like the start of the season been kind of like rocky, to say the least. But yesterday I went 1-1. I know a lot of people was on San Antonio that I respected, and I really wanted to take Sacramento yesterday, thinking that they could just get the job done. They didn't, so I stayed off. But I did end up taking the total, which was a loser. Like you said, kind of like with the Chicago game, was flying over, and then Sacramento can't buy a bucket in the second half. Wemby was really clogging up the paint a lot for Sabonis last night. He ended up with like 23 points, but he made it difficult for him, and the Kings just couldn't make a shot. So that ended up being a loser. But then I did take James Harden under on his points. The Clippers typically give him the Thunder typically give him hell, and they did again yesterday. So he did go under his 19.5. That was pretty sweat free. So I went 1-1 yesterday, and having a lot of those like 1-1 days, 1 and 2 days, like just kind of feels difficult to like stack it up right now. But appreciate you having me on the show, and I'm ready to jump into it for today. 8 in-season tournament game cup things that we got going on for today, Skee. I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, and before we even get into the breakdowns, it's the NBA group play. I guess that's how we're gonna call it, right? For the in season tournament. So this is where like it matters how much the teams win by, right? Like if they're tied at the end, the differential comes into play. So you can see teams trying to run it up at the end. I remember last year Boston, still scoring when they're blowing somebody out at the end, and you can see it can go the other way. You can see teams really locking down on defense, trying not to let the other team score. So we've seen a lot of moving the totals, and so I just wanted to mention that before we get started. All right, first game up, we'll go Atlanta and Boston. Opened up Celtics minus 13. They are now a 15-point favorite. Total for this game. This is one of the big movers. Open 236.5. I had to like double check, triple check to make sure this was correct. It's all the way down. I see a 222 out there for that one. And as far as the injury report, it is a lot of players. It does make sense. I mean, Trey Young is out. Zeller, Lundy, Krejci, Hunter, Bufkin, and Bogdanovich all out for the Hawks. For the Celtics, they will get Jalen Brown back, but it looks like now Jason Tatum is game time decision, along with Springer and Al Horford. Porzingis, we know, remains out. This is the first of a back-to-back for the Celtics. You do have the Hawks with a little bit of rest advantage. I think they had 2 days off before this game, and it's a chance for the Hawks to bounce back after losing as a favorite to Chicago. Um, can they bounce back with this limited lineup? I don't know that I'll be saying so. I probably lean more towards the Boston side, but what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking about first thing to jump out to me, Ski, and I'm upset I missed the trade news. I didn't see when he was officially ruled out, but I saw the line move, and I'm like, damn, I know these two teams just played. I think it was like one day last week, and Boston beat the brakes off of them. They beat them by 30. That was the game that Trey Young left in. They won 123, I think, to 93. So the thing that kind of stood out to me here, Ski, because we know Boston typically they don't play fast, but Atlanta doesn't play a lot of defense. With Trey Young out there, you expect the defense to get better, but Dyson Daniels at point guard, like they don't even have a secondary point guard, Ski. So my question for you was, do we see like Atlanta try to play faster or slower without Trey Young? And like, are they able to generate enough offense? Right now, Atlanta team total is 103.5. Do we like that's historically low for Atlanta, it feels like, but it makes a lot of sense. Do you think Boston cares enough to want to limit them defensively, or do you think Boston can go up and over their team total that's sitting at like 118.5 right now? I think that's what we're asking ourselves if we really want to take the total, if we want to take it lower right now. And I'm in agreement with you. I do think Boston can win this game by 20, 25 points.
I'm not certain that Boston, like if they're scoring 130, are they gonna care if the Hawks go in there and score 105? I think they're fine with a 25-point win. That's just kind of how I look at it. And I'm looking at their box scores lately. And 107 Milwaukee got, 104 for Brooklyn, 118 Golden State. It did hold Atlanta down last time to 93 points. Um, I'm not mad either way you look. And if I can make a case for both Hawks team total under and Celtics team total over, I mean, we know how bad the Hawks defense is. I would think that I think the offense suffers. I don't know if they play faster or slower, but I think the offense suffers without Trey Young. Um, so either way, and if I like both team totals like opposite ways, that means I like the spread. So Celtics minus 15. That's pretty appealing to me. In the chat, I did see a couple people say team total. I'll ask you, Chris. It could be a game where they just go out and kill them early. Do you think maybe a first half team total will be better than a full game? Or are you interested in how would you approach that?
Yeah, I think when we think about the way the two teams play, Ski, Celtics want to shoot a ton of threes, and Atlanta doesn't defend the 3-point line well. Like we seen this team like really get out on teams early. They also like had Jaylen Brown come back in that last game, and they started off slow. I mean, they still got the 30 points, but they gave up 40 to the Bucks on Sunday. Had to kind of fight back in that game, and it wasn't until the second half that they really kind of picked it up. So Atlanta just doesn't allow, in my opinion, what they do allow, Ski, they allow a lot of resistance, in my opinion. And this, you kind of walking into the thing that they struggle with the most. They're last in opponent 3-point accuracy, allowing teams to shoot 41% from the 3-point line, and they're not even running teams off the 3-point line. Teams are shooting the second most threes against them. 42% of their shots, their opponent shots, is coming to the 3-point line. So that would scare me. I think Boston can get up on over their team total. I think Boston first half team total is probably good money as well, especially because they got the first leg of a back-to-back with Brooklyn tomorrow, like you said. And even with the rest here, Ski, like you talked about Atlanta having 2 days rest, there's still a six game in 9 nights because the game against Chicago on Saturday was a 5th and 7. So you got 6 and 9 overall with no Trey Young and no backup point guard because Bufkin is already out. So Dyson Daniels turnovers is probably gonna be could be a look in this game. And then before I kick it back to you, Ski, I did play a player prop in this one. I played Clint Capella under on his rebounds. The number
You
was eight
play
and a
that a
half. It was
lot
like
too. I noticed
yeah,
that.
it's like minus 113 this morning. By the time I like typically talk about the props, then I don't play them. But the line started to move, so I went ahead and sent it out. It was minus 125 when I sent it out. You got the blowout potential. His minutes have been limited. Oyeko Kongwu kind of stealing some of his minutes. Jalen Johnson is by far the better rebounder on the team. He's actually stayed under because of the minutes and because he's not rebounding the ball as well in 7 of the 11 games so far this season. The 2 that he has gone over in back-to-back games, but one of those were against Detroit without Duran. And then Chicago, we know, is not the greatest rebounding team. So he did go over in back-to-back games, but the game that they played earlier this season, where they lost by 30, he had 5 rebounds. So I'm thinking he's probably sitting on the bench in this one late in the game and doesn't clear the 9 rebounds. So I did play him under his 8.5 rebounds. I think it's a little bit more juice now, like minus 135, but I think that's a good look as well.
All right, good stuff on that. I think we did a good enough job on that game. We'll move it on over to the next one. Um, that is Heat and Pistons. Opened up Heat minus 2.5. They're down to 1 or 1.5 point favorites. And this is another total that dropped from 219.5 to 214.5 for the Heat. There's no Jimmy Butler out there. For the Pistons, Thompson and Clinton are out. Duran is questionable, and then Stewart is probable. Um, I want to ask you a question here on this, but before we break this game down, I didn't that last game that they played versus the Timberwolves. I didn't get to watch too closely because I was busy sweating out some other games. Um, but did you what did you notice about Miami in that game? How did they what in your opinion, how did they win that game if you saw it?
If I'm being honest with you, Ski, I didn't watch too much of that game either. I was sweating out something else myself too. But what I can say by the box score is that clearly they ran Minnesota off the 3 point line because Minnesota likes to shoot a ton of threes. Anthony Edwards leading the league in 3 point shooting, and they won that game by 1 point as a 7.5 point dog in that game with no Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Butler. So clearly they won it with defense, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Minnesota offensive, uh, not Minnesota. Miami's defensive rating was a 97.7, which is 92 percentile. So it was defense. Effective field goal percentage was good. They forced a bunch of turnovers in that game, 89th percentile, and they didn't foul a lot either. So I think that's how they won it. But I didn't really watch too much of it.
Well, I agree. From what I was looking at too, it seemed like the same kind of thing. And what stood out to me was they only scored what 95 points, I think, in that game. Um, I think they had like more than 25%, more than probably closer to 30% of their points were fast break points, and they still didn't crack 100. I just thought that was pretty interesting. So that means like if they're playing a team like the Pistons, because we know, first of all, we know with this Miami team, they're gonna struggle to score. It's like a couple guys who can go get their own bucket for real, for real. And what stood out to me is I'm listening to the interviews. Tyler Hero said, "Yeah, we just kind of got to get back to playing our game." He was talking about like in that previous game before the last one, that's not their game playing a 135 to 122 game. He said they got to give themselves a chance to win, even if the shots are not falling. And that sounds like way more defensive game, which is what you said you saw based on the stats, and slower pace. So when I'm looking at these numbers, pace wise so far, 20th and 26th on the season. Pistons have been decent defensively, 11th. Um, I know that the Heat are capable of playing defense and stretches. I'm looking towards the under in this game, maybe even more. Pistons team total under, and I mean, I'll say like this: in all the games the Heat have lost, or maybe I'll say most of the games, if not all, the Heat have lost. They've given up more than this team total. And all of the games the Heat have won, they have not given up over 107. The Pistons have stayed under 107 in 6 of their last 8 games. We know that the offense can dry up. I'm thinking either the Heat, I'm thinking the Pistons team total under, or maybe even the full game under. What do you think about those things, Chris?
Yeah, this was one, Ski. We talked about it a little bit before the show started. This was one of the totals that I really wanted, and I kind of felt like I was getting there late. But to your point, Ski, when I go back and look at like the last few times that these teams have played, it stayed under this number as well. So I know we feel like we're losing some value here because the total has dropped about 4 or 5 points. But you also just a couple other things like this Miami team, first game back on the East Coast after the a West Coast trip where they went to Denver, they played Minnesota, um, and they're still in the middle of a road trip. Ski. This is the fourth game of a 6 game road trip. They got the Pacers coming up next. I also think that whenever you win as a dog of 7 points or more, and I didn't look this up, but when you win as a dog of 7 points or more, you exert a lot of energy in that spot. So you probably have even less offense in the next game. And you mentioned what is Detroit doing to kind of stay around in every single game that they've played so far? It's their defense. Outside of that game against Atlanta, where I think it was 121 to 122, and they actually won that one. They play really good defense. I was paying attention to their game versus Houston on Sunday. I think the total was 218 and a half, something like that. At the end of the first quarter, it dropped to 196 because their defense had been like really, really good. You also got them uh, not having to travel at all. Third straight home game. I know it's the first leg of a back-to-back, and they got the Bucks tomorrow. But these totals have continued to go under. 4 straight unders in the head-to-head matchup, like you mentioned. Miami's played 4 of their last 5 games on the road. And one thing I wanted to see, Ski, was how do the Heat play as short road favorites? So when they've been getting 3 or less, laying 3 or less on the road since the start of the 2021 season, 12-4 to the under in that spot, staying under by about 8 points per game. So it's under nothing. If you hit the button, I'll hit the button. You're muted, Ski.
My bad, but it sounds good so far this season. Heat 2-0 to the under. as road favorites. Pistons on the front end of back to backs are also 2-0 to the under. I think this is a spot that I might even bet 3 times, man. Like I like the under, I like the Heat, I like the. Can you talk me off of, I guess, the Heat?
Um, Only if Durant comes back, I think that helps a lot, like with them being able to rebound the basketball. But what you mentioned about their offense kind of drying up, it does kind of feel like if you want the Pistons, you want them early. Like I still don't trust this offense. It's not a team that I want to be, like I know they're not laying points, but it's not a team that I really want to have in a one possession game. Now, granted, they've been able to keep those games close. And what I mentioned on my show this morning, Skee, was like the odds makers have caught up to the Pistons now. We're seeing a lot more like plus 1.5, plus 2.5, where last year we were seeing plus 7.5, plus 8.5. So this does feel like a number that Miami can cover. This is the big brother to the Detroit Pistons. They won 9 of the last 10. Detroit's covered. They're 7-2-1 against the spread in the last 10, but and they covered as 8.5 point favorites in that last game. But this line shift with just them being back at home from 8.5 to 1.5 does feel like a big move. I know it's no Jimmy Butler, but if Durant doesn't play, which I think he missed the last game as well, I don't think I really want anything to do with Detroit, primarily because you need them to win the game pretty much. So I'm with you. It'd be Miami or nothing, but I kind of feel like you said, both of these teams gonna struggle to score, and the pace is gonna be super slow. The last game that they played, Ski didn't reach this 214 number either.
All right. So I'm gonna think about it, but I do have it here. I have all three of those bets on my short list. I do like that under though quite a bit. I think I'm gonna play that one for sure. All right, let's go down the list some more. We have Hornets and Magic opened up. Magic -6. They're an 8 point favorite now. Total open 219.5 down to 212 or 212.5. Injury report: Bankero, we know he's out. Wendell Carter Jr. out. Trey Mann is game time decision. We have Miles Bridges out, Jeffries out, Nick Richards out, Mark Williams also out. You know what? The first thing that comes to my mind in this game is, well, two things. One, the Magic have been scoring more the past couple games. Maybe they figured out they need to either play faster or they're just they figured something out the past couple games. How to play without Paolo. Number two, on the flip side, the Hornets, we came into the season saying, the coach is preaching defense, defense, defense. It looked like it at first, then it didn't look like it for a couple games. But at the end of the day, they're 8-2 to the under so far this season. So
It's
a
because
little
their
bit of
offense sucks
conflicting.
too.
Okay, there you go. I was trying to, the market clearly likes it under. I think there's no way I could lay 8 with Orlando. It's Hornets or pass. But yeah, I want Hornets or under. What do you think?
Yeah, under was my first thought, Ski, but like you said, this was another one of those totals that was just dropping. You also got I don't think I heard you mention it, but you got a Charlotte team that's coming off overtime game, so
Overtime.
that doesn't bode well for it either, right? Not playing at the fastest pace. Charlotte last 5 games, second worst offensive efficient team in the NBA at 103.2 points scored per 100 possessions. The worst effective field goal percentage shooting team at 48.8%. They're not getting to the free throw line, fourth lowest rate, 16.6. And when you think about it, Ski, like it's just you already without you already not a great offense in general. Then and you play pretty slow. You rely heavily on LaMelo Ball to create all of your offense for you, and then you add Bridges out. You still don't have Nick Richards. You still don't have Mark Williams, who we haven't seen. So you're not getting a ton of offensive rebounds at all. And now then you got Trey Mann listed as questionable. But also, I don't know if you saw this, Ski, but like maybe 30 minutes ago, Cody Martin popped up. He's also listed as questionable with an illness as well. So I know, like you said, Orlando have been, scoring a little bit more. You also get them on the first leg of a back-to-back, third game of a 5-game homestand. But if we look at who those wins came against, Ski, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not betting them in those spots. I said last week, I said Orlando's been struggling when they were going on that 7-game losing streak. I said, but there's hope because they play the Pelicans and the Wizards. So I mean, that's just what the doctor ordered, right? You need a little New Orleans and a little Washington when you want to 0-6 ATS streak. I just feel like it's a tad bit too many points. I'm right there with you, Ski. It's Charlotte and nothing here. They're 22nd in pace, 21st in offensive rating, coming off the overtime game, like I talked about. I also think it could be a Charlotte team total under. I just think this game's going to be played really, really slow. Um, so yeah, those are the two ways that I'm looking. Is either Charlotte plus the points. I don't agree with the line move. I do think Orlando's being priced out because of the back-to-back wins versus the Pelicans and the Wizards. And I think Charlotte's a little bit better than that. But I would want Cody Martin in, especially like who else is going to score the balls? Like they legit have Brandon Miller, Grant Williams, and LaMelo Ball. Like who else is going to score the ball? So it's either under. I think the team total is like 102.5. I can see them struggling to get there if they're playing really, really slow, like Orlando plays as well outside of those two games. So it's either under or the points is the way I'm looking in this one too. Same as you.
Orlando has held their last two opponents under 100, under 95 even. Washington 94, Pelicans 98. They held OKC to 102 even though they lost. I mean, they're definitely capable of playing defense. That team total might be a solid look. What'd you say? 102 and a half, 103
102,
and a half?
102 and a half, 102 and a half is what I saw. Yeah. I also looked at games last year when LaMelo played and they were home dog. I mean, I'm sorry, when they were road dogs with LaMelo and the total was lower than 230, which was the lowest total. They were actually 5-1 to the over. They were getting smoked, but coaching has changed. They were 1-5 straight up, 1-5 against the numbers. So what that query told me, I know it's a small sample size, but what that query told me is that Hornets don't do well in these games that are projected to be lower scoring. You can take that for what it's worth, but that was something I thought was worth mentioning as well.
I'll get you on that. U Capper makes a good point here too. Magic without Bankero started off against OKC, Dallas, and Cleveland. People were writing them off. Now they're getting against some easier competition, and they're just, you know, looking back like how they're
So
supposed to look.
can I ask you a question, Ski? So
Yep.
where do you fit? Because I absolutely agree with RC there. Where do you fit? Where do you fit Charlotte in that like matchup tier, right? Because he said if you go back to that tweet, I mean if you go back to that message, those are really good teams. Thunder, Mavs, Cavs, right? We expecting those teams to be top four. But then you get two teams that honestly like are they real NBA teams right now? The Wizards are not a real NBA team, and the Pelicans, given all their injuries, they're also not a real NBA team. Like is Charlotte like a step up above them? And if so, like how much?
Maybe
Enough you be
one
taking.
tier. Maybe
Okay,
one tier.
okay.
I mean, what's this Hornets team's record? 4-6. They have been, more
They've been
competitive than some
covering
of
though,
these other
right? Yeah,
teams. They could cover. For my money, though, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm with you.
All right, we got New York and Philadelphia opened up Sixers as the short favorite. They're now a 3-point underdog. Total open 216 and a half. And another one dropping 4 points to the under. Injury report. Maxi's out for the Sixers, but they do get, the return of Joel Embiid. Will he be in shape? All that stuff to be determined. My guess would be no. New York Knicks, McBride. My bad. Let me see here. Looks like he's truly
Questionable, right?
questionable. Staying
Mm-hmm.
for campaign. Achua's out. Mitchell Robinson's out. We'll see what Carl Anthony Towns can do versus Embiid, but this is supposed to be a spot for the Sixers to get a little bit of playoff revenge, right? They are coming off of a win. The Knicks, I feel like the Knicks have been really inconsistent, but I feel like I would trust them more than Embiid coming back his first game versus Sixers. That's just how I feel. So, do you feel that same way, or do you think the Sixers get some revenge?
Nah, I think the revenge thing. I don't think it'll show up too much in this spot, Ski. Like this is like completely different roster makeup almost, right? Like Kelly Oubre, yeah, but like Embiid, I agree with you. Like I don't think first game back for him, especially on such a short number. It's not like they're getting a ton of points here. Like you kind of need the Knicks to cover. You need them to win the game if you take them, to cover in a one possession game. So I'm right there with you on that. I also think the thing that kind of stood out to me in this spot, Ski, and you mentioned the Knicks being pretty inconsistent. They played terrible on Sunday. Like the Pacers were without Nimhard, they were without Neesmith. They gave up 21, I think it was 20, 21 or 25 threes. Like the Knicks scored 100 and I think almost 140 points in that game. I mean the Pacers scored like 140 points in that game. So I do think it's a nice bounce back spot here. The Knicks have been more profitable off a loss this season because, like you mentioned, they have been inconsistent. But they're 3-1 straight up, three and 1 against the number. After a loss this season, they're bouncing back. They're winning by average of about 13 points per game. So I like that for the Knicks here, and I do think we always talk about chemistry, Skee. Like, so you insert Embiid. Paul George has not looked great so far, but then you don't have Maxey, and this is the first time that they're playing together. So I agree with the line move from 1.5. What is that? 4.5 points. I probably should have got it last night. I didn't play it, but it was Knicks or nothing for me in this spot. I do think that they bounce back. And then the other thing is, I know like somebody had mentioned on my show earlier, the percentage. I think teams are shooting like 90% at the rim against Karl Anthony Towns, and the Knicks don't have all that size and length that they had last year, but they do have OG Anunoby who guarded him last year, and I think that they could potentially even double team him. If they double team him, are you scared of the shooters, Skee, that the 76ers have?
No, I mean, there's some shooters. I'm not scared, but they can shoot. It's not like they can't shoot. Paul George can shoot. Lowry can knock down shots. Kelly Oubre. I mean, they're fine.
Okay.
So
So
I, mm, I'm starting to think over could be in play.
I'm thinking over too, because one thing that I mentioned on my show this morning was, and I'll just read this real quick. Um, Beat writer for the Knicks tweeted this out that the Knicks are the second best offensive rated team, 120.7, but they're the worst rated defensive team, 122.
Mm.
So I mean that tells me I think if we can get some pace here, which I know Embiid typically slows the pace down, but I'm thinking Philly they're coming off an overtime game, so against Charlotte, we expect Embiid to improve the offense. I think it's over here nothing. This total to me was the one that I felt like should probably be going the other way.
Well, I don't think we can expect pace uh, from either team here. Knicks
Efficiency.
slowest playing. Yeah, efficiency we can hope for, maybe get there with, but pace probably not going to get in this one. And I would also have to make the argument that Embiid would improve their defense, right? Um, Looking at just stats and numbers, team total wise, the Knicks are 6-3 to their team total over. Sixers opponents are 7-2, team total over. Saw Justin in the chat earlier. Let me see if I can get up there. There he is. He's looking at this Knicks team total over 106.5. Do you trust Embiid to play enough minutes in this game? Do you think he is going to improve this defense enough to keep the Knicks under 107?
No, nah. Like I don't think so. I think we see a big bounce back on the offensive side, and that's just how the Knicks have been. Like that's probably why I haven't been betting them as much. They took my money against Atlanta, struggled to score in that spot. But I think we see them locked in this game. If you go through, I was looking at this earlier too. If you go through and look at the way that the cup has been assigned, like the different like different leagues or whatever, like how they put the teams in there. The Knicks have a really good shot of winning this cup like bracket or whatever you want to call it, based on like availability of some of the other teams' players and them just being probably the best team in here. So I do think we get a fired up Knicks team. It's not like they're coming off a win against the Pacers. They got absolutely smoked in that spot. I actually think the Knicks team total is probably the better look. 117 points per game, coming off a loss so far this season. They got smoked by the Celtics. They scored 123 against the Pacers. They lost again. They scored 116 against the Heat. They scored 116 against the Hawks off a loss, and then they just scored 116 against the Bucks off a loss as well. So I actually like the Knicks team total to go up and over. I think Karl Anthony Towns will bring Joel Embiid outside the paint if he tries to guard him. That's a lot of wide open shots for Karl Anthony Towns, and he's been shooting the ball pretty well this season.
I like this. I like this play the more I'm thinking about it. Knicks, like you mentioned, they've hit it for their last 5 games, I think it is. Um, uh, Embiid, this right here, limited minutes for Embiid. I think that that defense is not going to be all the way there tonight. So Knicks team total, I will add to my short list and probably play today. And let me just make sure, is that number still 106 and a half? It is up to 107 and a half right now. 107.5. So I like that. I think we did a good job talking that one out. Let's keep going down the list. We still have what, four more left. Next up is Raptors and Bucks. This game, my bad. Get this off the team totals. Opened up Bucks minus 8.5. Still sitting there. Total. This the least moving total, and it still moved 3.5 points from 228.5 to 225.5 or 225. A lot of injuries, or at least injury report is full. Walter, Olenek, Brown, Barnes all out. Temple and Quickly look like they're both game time decision. Where the Bucks, Giannis is probable. You have Andre Jackson also probable. Gary Trent Jr. probable. Lillard and Middleton look like they're out. I'm gonna be honest on this one, man. This is one of those games I don't feel too comfortable betting. If I'm betting, the Raptors have been really scrappy. I mean, it's hard for me to look against them, and at the same time, the Bucks haven't looked worth laying or worth expecting to win by double digits. So just a lean towards the Raptors. And the Raptors, I feel like, are a team that also plays with pace, probably an over. What do you think about this one, Chris?
Yeah, I think this will be the time that people will probably want to like start potentially getting away from the Raptors. I think this is the perfect time to buy on them, Ski. The only thing that's held me up is that it's the last game of a 5 game road trip. And since Quickly came back, they've been more of an under team. It's also third game in 4 nights, and they've had three straight unders. Their offense has really, really struggled to consistently score. They are 8-3 against the number so far, but I think they've failed to cover two of their last three. I know that the Lakers beat them up pretty bad after they came out, pretty hot in the first half in that game. I think they might have even been winning or like a 2 point game. They end up losing that game by double digits. So Toronto's been kind of running out of gas lately, Ski, is what I've been seeing in the second half of these games. And that makes sense, especially last game of a 5 game road trip. They're only 2-9, but like I said, 8-3 against the number. In no way, shape, or form am I laying points with the Milwaukee Bucks, though. You just read off the injury report. No Damian Lillard, and I'm still laying 8.5 points. They're 2-8 straight up, 3-7 against the number. I know they got Giannis, but like what else makes me think that this team is going to be able to win a game by pretty much by double digits here? I looked at like as I kind of narrowed it down, I was thinking, well, what if Toronto runs out of gas here again late? Because that's a potential, like that's what we've seen recently. They're 6-5. The Raptors are against the spread in the first half. 3-3 as road dogs, and the Bucks are not a team that I'm laying points with early. They're 3-6-1 against the spread in the first half. 0-2, 0-2-1 against the spread as a home favorite in the first half. I know that they lost to the Celtics the other day, and they came out pretty locked in that game, and they had a 10 point lead at the end of the first quarter. But yeah, I think the Bucks. I think Toronto should be able to keep this game close. It's plus 8.5, or it's first half. I think you can get a plus 4.5. That's the only way that I'm looking, just in case Toronto does run out of gas late on the last game of a road trip here.
The more I think about this now, I'm not gonna lie, it makes me not want to play it. Tomorrow says Bucks are 1-7 ATS without Dame and with Giannis last year. UCapper says this is their first winnable game for the Bucks since that Giannis interview. Well, maybe I missed the interview. Um, says fifth
I
road game
think
as well.
if it's the one that I'm thinking about, Ski, is the one where he kind of like went off on his teammates in the locker room, and they were asking him a whole bunch of stuff about like what needed to be changed, and he was saying like we got to play with heart, we got to play with hustle, energy. All that's fine and dandy, but I've seen Toronto like come out, have a first half lead against Denver, have a first half lead against Sacramento, have a first half lead or played our game really, really close as well. They played the Clippers really close. I think they can keep this one close as well.
Yeah, I might just I'm not gonna lie, man. It's one of those I'm gonna have, you know how I said I was locked in on some other games and sweating, and then there was the other game I'm not really watching.
This is
This
one
that
of
other
those
game that's
ones.
gonna be right over there in that corner, not really watching too close. But we'll see how it shakes out. Next game, Phoenix and Utah. This one opened up Phoenix -3. They are now 5-point favorite. Total open 232 and it's down to 227. For the injury report here, we do know Kevin Durant is out. We also have Nurkic questionable, Gillespie out, Keontae George is game time decision for the Jazz, and then you have Preston out. Man, I had a query. I'm gonna go look it up when I pass it to you. But I had a query on this game that was pretty good, like 70%, and it said to play the Suns. And you know, I think I understood it, but it's hard for me to bet that without Kevin Durant in there and just knowing like Phoenix hasn't really been good laying points this year. In general, even with Kevin Durant. So I kind of pumped the brakes. The Jazz fairly healthy. I mean, they got marketing. As long as Keontae George plays, they should be okay. They're at home, at altitude. I feel like this one could be sneaky Jazz, and it kind of made me stay off. What do you think?
Yeah, we know the Jazz have always been more feistier at the crib than they have been on the road, Ski. But situationally, I think it's the Phoenix spot. I really, really do. This number opening at 2.5 last night and being pushed up makes a ton of sense to me. With no Kevin Durant, of course, it's a little scary. Phoenix typically plays really, really well. Um, in Utah. I know that they won like 3 games there last season. I think they won like 5 in a row. They are coming off the overtime game against Sacramento, and they got Sacramento again tomorrow. So first leg of a back-to-back here for them. Utah, though, Ski, first game back home after a 4-game road trip, and they actually won as a 1 point, as they won by 1 as a 6.5 point dog against against San Antonio the other day. So I had a couple of queries on this one as well, Ski. The first one I'll talk about is, so I looked at road favorites since the 2012 season that are coming off a loss. They have less rest than their opponent, and their opponent win percentage is less than 45%. So they're playing against a pretty poor team.
This is the same
Their
query
opponent,
I'm looking at.
their opponent also previously won. Yeah, 73 and 22 straight up, 76.8%, and 66, 27, and 2 against the number 71%. Says that you lay the points with the Suns today. And I think that
Mhm.
they also, I mean, they got something to prove, right? Like they just lost to Sacramento. They got Sacramento tomorrow. So Sacramento might smoke them again after you're coming out of altitude today. But you got to get this one. They probably want to win the little cup thing as well. So yeah, I also think just kind of looking at what does Phoenix want to do, Ski? So far this season, they've shot a bunch of threes. On the season, they're shooting the fourth most threes. They're shooting 38%, which puts them in the top 10. And Utah's 3-point defense, it's a lot to be desired there. So I do think that they'll be able to take advantage there. You still got plenty of guys that can score the basketball. And I'm just not like the biggest believer in Utah's offense quite yet. Like I know that this potentially, probably going to get a little bit better with marketing. But when you go through and just look at some of their offensive metrics, like it's pretty bad, even in a couple of the games that marketing has played in so far. So I do think it's a little bit of a letdown spot for the Jazz after a big win against San Antonio. And I do think it's a buy-on spot for the Suns here, even without Kevin Durant on the road. The thing that's
Even
scary,
coming
though,
off
Ski,
that
last thing I'll
overtime
say,
game, even on the
yeah,
first of a back to back.
so the first of the back-to-back, to me, makes me think that the Suns probably put all their eggs in this basket because it's a winnable game, right? And it's a cup game. Do you agree?
Yeah.
You might lose to Sacramento tomorrow, but if you lose to the Jazz tonight, and then you lose to Sacramento tomorrow, like I just try to think about it from a player perspective. It's like like Budenholzer is a better coach than what they've had in the past. So I think that you get a step up there, and I just think that they're gonna be able to exploit Utah defensively from the 3-point line. So yeah, I know that the spread is moving, but it's Suns in this spot or nothing. I also consider the Utah Jazz team total under because I think that just logically, without Kevin Durant, the Suns will have to play a little bit more defense because their offense won't be as fluent, in my opinion. Um, Kevin Durant is somebody you can just throw the ball to in the fourth quarter. He can go get you a bucket or make a play. And if you don't have that capability, we've seen teams like really, start the pace starts to slow down, the altitude starts to kick in the second half, and you typically start to see some under. So if the Suns are serious about this game, I do think it's going to be from a defensive perspective. And the team total under for Utah, I think it was 111 and 112.5 last night. I think that's also worth a play here as well.
Somebody said Kessler's out. I'm over here looking. I don't see Kessler out.
I
Kessler's
didn't see that
still
either.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Um, RC, if you still in here, I want to. I mean, he said this. I was looking at this. He says he wish he took the under before the total move. He says it's out of range. What do we like the most about the under for this game? Number one question. And number two question. Um, I mean, I guess the Suns play slow pace, right? Um, Jazz though, their defense isn't good, but I guess their offense has been worse. I mean, I can understand it. One thing I'll say is first half unders for the Jazz have been pretty good. Looking at that, they're 8-1 to the under. First half unders for the Suns are 7-3. Surprisingly, it's the opposite for the full game. 6-4 to the over for the full game for the Suns. So if you like the under, my question would be why not take 111.5 for the first half? That's kind of what I'm thinking there. Any thoughts on
I
that?
like
And
I
we'll
like
talk about
I
the
like that,
series.
Skee. I like that. But I like that, but I'll counter that and I'll say this. I think the full game overs versus the first half unders is probably more contributed to Kevin Durant being available in the second half of some of those games. Um, because like I said, in the fourth quarter, when the offense slows down, everybody kind of standing in the corner, you can like really just get a ball to KD and he can, even if he's not scoring, like he can make a play. So yeah, and then it's the under spot as well. So yeah, I also had a query, the same query that likes fade, another query that likes fading the Jazz also says is an under spot. So since the 2012 season, looking at a team that's at home off a 4 game road trip, and they previously won as a dog, it says that's the flat spot, right? 104, 85, and 2 to the under. That's 55%. And it's only happened one time this season. Stayed under by 8.5 points. And that was the Kings and the Jazz game going under 237.5.
That's interesting for sure. And Kessler is going to be out. I just refreshed again and it did pop up now for me. So Kessler is out.
More of a reason to like the Suns than the under though, right? Because Kessler like
Right.
is a guy that plays a little bit of defense and can rebound the basketball.
Yeah, like a Rudy Gobert type. Uh Man, this game is starting to give me a headache, man. Uh I don't know. I'm probably just gonna leave this one alone. I was trying to help get there. I agree with this comment from you, Capper. It says Suns off OT, first leg of back to back. I would imagine slower pace and lesser offensive efficiency without KD. That all makes sense to me. Um, then he says, "Don't listen to me, Ski." Yeah, I think this is one I gotta think about longer. First half under was on my lean list, but no Kessler. I might have to even cross that off. So we got two more games left. Many. Was there something else you wanted to say on that?
No, I was just what RC had mentioned. Ski, I just typed it in the database real quick. So he said all for overtime on the first leg of a back to back, and you just add in that the team lost, and it's 149, 129, and 5, which is 54.6% to the under as well. Um, I don't know like last 5 or 10 years, but yeah, I think I agree. I know the total's coming down, but I do think it's a little bit of an under spot here.
All right, we'll go to Blazers and Timberwolves. Timberwolves opened as a 9-point favorite. They're now 8.5. Total, finally one that hasn't really moved crazy. Open 220.5, and consensus right now is 221. Nobody on the injury report for Minnesota. For the Blazers, Matisse Thybulle looks like he continues to be out. You have a fourth game in 6 nights for both teams. Both teams on the first of a back to back. These teams did play, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they did play not long ago on the 8th, and the final score was 127 to 102. Um, I think that they kind of figured out they could do whatever they want with this team. Minnesota, one of the few teams who's top 10 in both offensive rating and defensive rating. Um, it's hard for me to look at the Blazers here. If the Blazers are going to be competitive, I would say first quarter, but other than that, I think over the course of the game, the Timberwolves can win this one by double digits. How do you feel about it?
Copy and paste exactly what you just said, Ski. This is, I don't feel like this is a real NBA team right now. I think I was watching a little bit of that Memphis game that they played over the weekend because it was the last game on. And I looked at the screen one time and I think they were shooting 1 for 22 from the 3 point line. Like offensively, they had their efficiency was a 83 in that last game, which is a 1% so far this season. And that was coming off a Minnesota game where they scored 102 points and had a offensive efficiency of a 96.4. Like this is just like outside of the San Antonio game, which they still lost by 13. They just don't seem to be like able to score the basketball at all. Ski. They had one game so far this season. With two games. They did get the Pelicans, but I mean everybody's getting the Pelicans. So and I think I was on them in that game. But yeah, they that last week when we talked about them losing to San Antonio, and they were in the rest spot, and San Antonio was on the second leg of back to back. I told you I had to
Hmm.
see like probably 5 good performances in a row before I was even touching this team. I don't think I'm gonna see it this year. So if I bet on Portland, it'll probably be next year. Probably be next year, Ski. And then the other thing is the defensive efficiency. It's been really bad. Like that's what at least you could kind of hang your hat on at the beginning of the season. There's some couple defensive ratings in here where they had a 102 versus the Pelicans, 108 versus the Pelicans, um, 110 versus the Clippers. But against Memphis, 128.3, against Minnesota, 122.6. San Antonio had a 128.6. The San Antonio Spurs on the second leg of a back to back. It's just not a lot to be desired right here, Ski. So another thing I'll share real quick. Shout out to our guy Munov. He's been sharing this with me. And you always talk about, Ski, how you never want to take the Minnesota Timber take the Portland Trailblazers after outside of the first quarter. So Munov shared this with me that the Blazers have actually been getting outscored in the third quarter by an average of 10.2 points per game. I don't know what Chauncey is saying or letting them do at halftime, but I'll just read this off really quickly. Ski. Against the Warriors in the first game, they were outscored by 16 in the third quarter. Against the Pelicans, just one. They actually beat the Pelicans in the third quarter in the next game. But since then, the Clippers minus 10, the Kings minus 10, the Clippers minus 7, the Thunder minus 21, the Suns minus 26, the Spurs minus 11, the Wolves minus 10, and then the Grizzlies it was a minus 18. So they've been getting absolutely smoked in that third quarter. For people who can find that bet, I think that's a really solid one.
Yeah, I'll be looking. I mean, are we supposed to take third quarter before the game, or are we supposed to take it at halftime, or
Me and
I
I've
don't think
been
it really
playing the
matters.
opponent team total. I mean, I don't think it really matters if you want the spread or the whatever spread or the team total, but team totals real quick, just going backwards. Ski. Grizzlies scored 42 in the third quarter the other day. Timberwolves scored 34. Spurs scored 35. Pelicans 27. Suns 44. Thunder 38. Clippers 35. Kings 38. Pelicans 30. Pelicans 38 and Warriors 38. So I don't know what Chauncey's
God.
saying to him, but it's been pretty bad. Teams are averaging 36.3 points per game in the third quarter. Shout out to him,
All right, you know what this game is making me think here? It's making me think that I mean, I'm hearing everything, I'm listening. For one, I don't even know anything anymore that the Blazers are doing good. The chat was kind of saying that the Blazers gave up. I mean, I probably agree. Chauncey, like
I
Chauncey
agree.
probably gave up too already. Like, I don't know what's to like for this Portland team. For the Timberwolves, there's a lot to like. Um, like I said, what stands out to me is top 10 offense and defense so far. They're a team that's shooting the three well. Number two and above the break 3-point field goal percentage. The Blazers, second worst as far as defending that above the break three. I think that they can run it up on them, really, for real. I look at the Blazers more. Um 89 to 134, 102 to 127, 118 to 105. Like, why it's not hard to beat this team by double digits. I look at Minnesota and all of the games that they're winning, they're not winning close games. I mean, they won a close game by versus Denver, but outside of that, they've been double digit wins. So I don't think 8.5 is too much of an ask. We are looking at, like our guy Nets Bets in the chat said, with the group play is point differential. So this is starting to look like a really, really good play to me. Minnesota minus 8.5. Minnesota team total even over 115.5. I mean,
They,
what do you
they
think
scored
about those two?
127, Ski. They scored 127 against the Trailblazers. And you also got to mention. I think it's important to mention that this they potentially may not overlook the Trailblazers just because they just beat them. That's something I'm always kind of hesitant of, like, okay, just because this thing happened last game when they played a couple days ago doesn't mean it's gonna happen again. But they're coming off a loss to the Miami Heat. So I mean, I'm with you. I think team total over 115.5 should be good. And I think the spread is also good. It's a double digit win here for sure.
Um, we're in agreement. Roy says Ski needs to drop football and concentrate on basketball again. I'm doing well in football, so why would I stop betting it if I'm winning? That doesn't make sense to me at all. UCapper says there's no way we don't have 100 likes yet. He says shut it down. Okay, we do got 102. Casey says he says don't shut it down, turn it up. I appreciate y'all in the chat. Um, Hitting the like button for the show. It definitely does help out the show. Um, Mark says, meet you at the window, Ski. So I like the 8.5. Last thing I'm gonna say is, I mean, I guess team total. I don't need to have the team total too. The point differential is what matters. It's not like how many points you scored. So they could do it with defense. They could do it with offense. I think it's just 8.5. You agree?
Yeah, until the Blazers show us that they can lose a game by less than 10, Ski, I think we just continue to. But we also got to remember this: Memphis went into that game with no Ja Morant. They went in there with no Marcus Smart, no Desmond Bain. It was Jared Jackson Jr. and Santi Aldama out there getting buckets, and Scottie Pippen Jr. And Huff. So yeah, I think this Timberwolves team will be turned up. I'm gonna play it as soon as we finish the show. Ski. I'll lay the 8.5.
I like it. Uh, Gabriel says, y'all jinx the Nets. Who's y'all? I mean, I didn't just start talking about the Nets first half yesterday. I started talking about it a little while ago. So I don't know what we saying there with that one. GLB bets was good, and congrats to you. I believe this is who you was talking about, Chris. What came with that early look on the under, and got some nice COV. So nice
20
work. Keep it
points.
up. That's amazing. Last game on the slate: Dallas and Golden State. It'll be a good one. It's gonna be a late night for me at the casino. I can see. Open -2 for Golden State. -2.5 right now. Total went up from 230.5 to 234.5. Injury report: Wiggins is game time decision. I do remember something happened to Wiggins, but I can't remember what it was in that last game. Um, Damn, I can't remember. Doncic, he's probable. Lively is questionable. PJ Washington is doubtful. Dante Exum is out. This is an interesting game for a few reasons, but I mean, number one, we all know Clay versus old team. Um, I don't think there's any animosity for real, but I do think he wants to go out there and show him like, hey, I should have kept believing in me for real, for real. So I think Clay could be worth a look, whether it's on his threes or his points. Probably threes would be my preference. Outside of that, though, I don't really like much of what I'm seeing from Dallas. Um, I think the loss of PJ and Lively is hurting both the defense and the offense. I mean, Luca, he wants to either score or throw lobs in my mind, and you're taking away a couple of lob threats right there. And we already talked about the defense for the Warriors. I'm not gonna lie, they look like a well-oiled machine. They're deep. They're healthy right now. As long as Wiggins is out there, they won 8 out of 10. They're at the house. I mean, why would we bet against the Warriors? Why not just take Golden State to win tonight?
Can't tell you not to do it, Ski. This is what I will tell you to do, though. This is what I will ask you, I guess, to as a rebuttal, because it's Golden State for me and nothing as well. When I look at Dallas, one thing that they've been doing is trying to score at the rim a little bit more, and Golden State has been really good at deterring teams from getting to the rim. This is the first game back home, though, Ski, after a 5-game road trip. They got a big win against OKC after a little bit of a letdown against Cleveland. before beating Boston. So it's been kind of like back and forth. But yeah, Golden State looks like, maybe the second, third best team in the Western Conference so far. I can't talk you off of it all. Do you Ski? How much do you take into the handicap it being their first game back home? And Wiggins Ski is a low back strain, so he's questionable for that reason. Do you like it as much without Wiggins? And does the first game back home after a 5-game road trip impact your handicap at all?
In a normal game, in the middle of the season, I would put more weight into it. This early in the season, a game where everybody on the Warriors, they've been looking at this game. They know this game is coming up. I don't think it's a game that they overlook. So not necessarily in this spot. Um, if Wiggins is out, I would not like that as much because I think they need him to help defend. Uh, I think they need his defense quite a bit tonight. So I would wait and see, make sure Wiggins is in. But if he is in, I see no reason other than to take the Warriors. That's just how I feel. People in the chat
Hey,
say Clay is going to be emotional. He's going to try too hard. We'll see. What up?
Ski, I got a question for you. So you mentioned the Mavs without PJ and without Derek Lively. I think Lively is questionable, right? And PJ is doubtful. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. So even if they return, like it's been a couple games that they've missed, Dallas defensively, I wrote the numbers down earlier. They are a plus 5.8 in point score differential on the full season. But if you take Lively and PJ off the floor, they're minus 0.3. Um, and if you go in and look at the last two games, Dallas is coming off a game against Denver where Denver had a 125.8 offensive rating. I would argue right now the Golden State offense is better than Denver's offense. So that was kind of alarming if you like Dallas because they gave up 122 points. Before that game, it was the game against Phoenix, and they gave up the Phoenix offensive rating was a 126.7. So it's been back to back pretty poor games. I know Dallas has been doing a pretty good job when you look at the stats of kind of running teams off the 3-point line, and that's what Golden State's been doing. But I kind of feel like Golden State's been moving the ball a little bit more. And I just kind of feel like they got a little bit more depth as well. Even if Wiggins sits, if PJ Washington and Derek Lively on 100% for this game, or one of those guys miss, I wanted to get your thoughts on Golden State team total. Do you think that they'd be able to score in this spot, or do you think it's more of an under game with them potentially, I don't know, like playing a little bit slower or first game back home?
I think they can score. I think there's going to be an emphasis, and everybody will be excited for this game because of the matchup. And um, I couldn't. I could only look towards. I could look towards Golden State to score. I think Golden State definitely will score. The one thing I'll say is Golden State defense has been really good. And I mean, you listed off some numbers there without Lively, without PJ. I mean, if I'm thinking that hurts the offense for the Mavericks, I'll probably be looking towards a Mavericks team total under, if anything. Mavericks team total is 114, 116 and a half. And I want to say
Well,
there used to be a trend where Golden State, like if the opponent team total was above 115 or 116, something like that, they were like a crazy number to the under. Like Golden State does not give up that many points. I'm looking so far this season, they did give it up to Houston. They did give it up to Cleveland. But nobody else, I don't think, really getting to this number. Any thoughts on that Mavs team total?
yeah, I would I would definitely want Wiggins in. We know what he's been able to do to kind of slow down. You're not gonna stop Luca, but to slow him down. I also think is we got to mention this too, Ski. Luca is not quite 100%. It always feels like he's never 100%, but he's dealing with that growing injury, and that I think that growing issue, and he's going to be out there. But I think that that's something to take into the handicap as well. I was trying to find the number that you were talking about with the Warriors. I thought it was a home trend. Yeah,
It
not
could
anything
be.
really. I'm looking at
Uh,
the Warriors since the 2021 season, Ski, as a at home, and the line is within three because I felt like it was like a typically like a line within three, but it's 15-12 and one to the under, but that's a super like smaller sample size. That's 56%, but I thought it was something higher than that too.
Chris says it's 118. It was 118 at home. Chris probably knows what I'm talking about there. Um, so it's not at 118, but definitely a trend I do remember. So just a lean, I guess, for me tonight. Luca's groin is a concern. Absolutely. Um, some people in the chat liking the Mavericks there tonight. We'll see how this game shakes out. I think we did a pretty good job, Chris. We were on here for an hour. We got through all 8 games. I feel like we broke them down pretty good. So at this point, um, first, I mean, let me show my guys some love here with this. I'm kind of out of it a little bit. There we go. The money baller. I didn't pull it up too much here because I don't usually pull it up when I have when I'm not by myself. But a lot of the stats and trends that we're using and from this website is color coded to make it easier to see. And if you guys want to try it out or sign up, you can use. I mean, we both have a link. The link for mine is in the description to this video. Use promo code Skee, and you get 50% off your first month. And I know Chris has one too, and should be on your YouTube channel, right? So that's what I wanted to say first, and then I want to ask you, Chris, if there's anything else you would like to promote, and if you have a best bet for the show, feel free to share. If you don't, if you want to review, or if you don't want to review, whatever you want to do, it's all good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, Ski. Always a pleasure to come on and talk the games out with you. As far as promoting, just you guys, if you don't follow me on YouTube, you can. If you like, it's at crispy capital two p's two n. Same thing for my Twitter handle or X or whatever you want to call it. As far as best bet on the show, Ski, we did talk through a lot that I wrote down on my short list as well. The one bet that I placed today is my favorite bet though, and it's actually a player prop. I'm not big into player props. It's something that I'm kind of transitioning into, which I started in player props, but I feel like I'm kind of transitioning back to. And that's Clint Capella under the 8.5 rebounds. I think that game has blowout potential written all over it with a 15-point spread. Capella minutes have been super unstable. And as I mentioned earlier, he's only hit the over in 4 of his 11 games. Against Boston early this season, he only had 5 rebounds. So I think getting 8.5 is a steal. I know it's a little bit juicier now, but you only drink the juice if you lose. So I like Clint Capella under his 8.5 rebounds. As far as favorite spreads or other just kind of looks that we talked about, Ski, the Charlotte team total is real interesting to me, especially if Cody Martin doesn't play. I do think that they're going to play slow and force Orlando to play slow. So looking at their team total to go under, Orlando, especially actually on the first leg of a back-to-back as well. So I like that under. I wasn't thinking about laying the points with Boston, Ski, but you kind of talked me into that. I know 15 is a big number, but without Trae Young, like they lost without Trae Young in a game he got hurt by 30. So I know Boston is more than capable of going out there winning this game by 20 points, especially without Trae Young out there. I think the first half team total is absolutely golden. I haven't even bet that yet, but I'll be looking towards that. And then the Miami Detroit, that's the last one I'll talk about. I think the under is the right side there too at 214.5. I mentioned those previous games haven't actually even gotten up and over the total. And real quick, I looked at it after we talked about it, Ski. I want to share that real quick. The Heat and the Pistons are so that total at 214.5. The last time that they played was real quick. Hold on. That the last 12 times that they played, they're 9-3 to the under. I want to mention that their games are averaging 208 points over the last 9. No Jimmy Butler. The game that they played earlier this season finished 15 points under the total, and that total was 219.5. They also had a 214 last year. That one went under. They had a 215 last year. That one went under. So I think that under is a really good look. See, and I'll leave it there. I like a couple of the other things that we talked about. Toronto first half, not laying points with Milwaukee without Damian Lillard in the first half. So I like Toronto first half too, but I'll leave it there as a short list. Official bet though, Clint Capella under on his rebounds at 8.5. Appreciate you having me on, Ski.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to come on, and that's a lot of great bets. We always do a good job, talking these games out, and we like a lot of the same things in the chat. Casey, not gonna let me forget. He said, "We got over 100 likes. Where's my donos?" So I did give 5 free memberships in the chat, and let me see. They did go to Brian H, Joshua Alexander, Dan N, Winner Circle, and the Fix is in. So congrats to you guys. Um, I will post the Discord link in there too, so you guys can join. And I'll share some action tonight for my members. Best bets for the show. I haven't placed a bet yet, and I don't like to give you guys anything I haven't played, but I will be placing bets right after this show and throughout the day. So what I'm gonna do first is read my short list, just so you guys have an idea what I'm looking at, what I'm deciding between. That is Boston minus 15, Boston team total over 118 and a half, Hawks team total under 103 and a half. I want to see which one of those I'll pick in that game. Heat on the money line, Heat Pistons under 214 and a half, Pistons team total under 107 and a half. I might even play all three in that game, not gonna lie. Hornets team total under 102 and a half, Knicks team total over 107 and a half, Phoenix and Utah first half under 111 and a half. I'm probably not gonna get there with that one though. Not gonna lie, because no Kessler. I didn't like that. Minnesota minus 8.5 and Minnesota team total over 115 and a half. And last but not least, if we get Wiggins in, Golden State Warriors look like the play to me. So that's my short list. Like I said, I don't like giving you guys a bet, but if I'm making one bet right after the show, it's Minnesota minus 8.5. So that would be my best bet. Like I said before, Chris, appreciate you taking the time to come on and cap these games with me. The chat said a few times that we did a really good job. um, and they like the combination. So appreciate you again for the chat. A lot of great cappers, a lot of great people. And just always want to let you guys know that I appreciate you. I will have a show with the OG crew at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you can come, get some more NBA action with myself, Wham Bam, Babano, and Dutch. And I'll catch you guys then. Peace.